Imagine that you're a third-world dictator with delusions of grandeur. You've spent a good deal of your nation's gross national product on state-of-the-art weaponry, on missiles, tanks, aircraft, and perhaps a surplus Russian submarine or two. You're thinking that a little cross-border adventure might pay off, might bring you increased access to shipping lanes or some useful natural resources. And one morning you wake up and look out across your pristine private beach and see floating offshore in perfectly legal international waters a couple of American warships. Intimidating, maybe, but how effective? You've got your shoreline mined, pillboxed and covered from end to end with guided missiles that skim the waves like deadly supersonic surfers. You figure that you can raise the cost of international heroism to a level unacceptable to the American electorate and increase your own stature in the process. You're covered, right? Well, consider this. The Navy you're looking at has almost nothing but tradition in common with the United States Navy you'd have faced 10 years ago. The new United States Navy has been reorganized from the ocean floor up for just this kind of confrontation. It's armed with new ships, new weapon systems, and a new battle doctrine called Forward from the Sea. Driven by the Cold War, the United States Navy had a clear purpose: be prepared for open hostilities with the Soviet Union. Those hostilities might begin any number of places over any number of issues, but the end result would be pretty much the same: worldwide conflict of a devastating and likely brief variety. The job of the Navy, should World War III actually begin, to do simply what no Navy had ever done before: dominate all of the world's seas at once and hold them while lobbing retaliatory strike after strike into the enemy's heartland. Generations of Americans spent billions of tax dollars and the creative lives of thousands of scientists and engineers, making possible a war so horrible that no one would dare start it. It became a war of theoretical capability, a strategic dance where a false step meant not just social embarrassment, but the end of civilization as it was then known. As the Cold War reached its climax, the Reagan administration embarked on a quest for a 600-ship Navy. It would have been the largest and most powerful naval force ever assembled, a fleet designed to fight everywhere at once without benefit of support from the other military branches or the home front. Then the world changed. Almost overnight, the great Soviet bear of American nightmares imploded, leaving the Navy and America dedicated to a suddenly obsolete strategic model. America and the Navy needed to rethink.
It's a changing world. The big war, heading up to the Norwegian Sea with 5 battle groups is not what's going to happen anymore.
The Cold War gave way to a kind of hot peace. Regional conflicts, long held in check by American and Soviet rivalry, flared unpredictably.
As of January 16, 1991, 28 nations are at war with Iraq.
In 1992, President George Bush put in motion a top-down national security review based on the diplomatic, political, and economic realities of the post-Soviet world. Cold War or no Cold War, it was obvious that the Navy would retain 2 of its basic roles: in deep canyons far below the ocean's turbulent surface, nuclear missile submarines would still await the horrible possibilities. On the surface, naval transport would still provide America's pipeline to large-scale overseas operations. Beyond that, everything else was up for grabs. An inventory of naval capabilities produced an impressive and imposing list of components for strategists to work with. There were a dozen aircraft carriers capable of lingering off hotspots for months at a time without weakening, 85 nuclear submarines, and 12 amphibious assault ships that could deliver swarms of ground troops. The Navy had maritime patrol craft that could monitor virtually all movement in hundreds of square miles, battleships armed with guns that could hurl 2,000-pound warheads 30 miles, cruisers that could creep up on blockade runners like a cold winter fog. It had ships to mine harbors and other ships to sweep the mines away. And it had special operations forces, including the SEALs, a commando force created by President Kennedy that combined the stealth of a cat burglar with the impact of an armored battalion.
With the drawdown of land-based forces all over the world, that leaves the forces that are most flexible, most mobile, to keep the peace in many areas, and in many areas that's the United States Navy.
The Navy's battle space would be the littoral regions, the shallow coastal waters and land within reach of the sea that are home to 80% of the world's population. It is in the littorals that future conflicts are most likely to pop up, battles over territory, economic influence, and ethnic resentment.
We have this idea of forward presence, where our Navy is seen around the world as a symbol of the United States, its power and its willingness to use. This group of carrier, cruiser, destroyer, submarine, large amphibious attack ship, and smaller amphibious ships, self-contained, has the ability to exercise forward presence, whether it's just to be there, to be seen, whether it's there to respond to a crisis, or whether it's really there to put down a conflict.
From the sea moved the Navy out of the relative safety of the deep blue and into the unpredictable waters closest to the most intensely defended enemy shores. There, naval task forces faced a latticework of possible threats. Just getting in close to shore is among the most dangerous of military adventures.
The mine warfare is always going to be the implement of choice for the poorest of the third world nations that we deal with, because it provides an enormous amount of leverage over a very powerful and capable force with a relatively small investment. You have to be able to deal with it.
Minesweeping, once an almost quaint vestige of wars past, took on a new importance. The Navy embarked on an ambitious construction schedule, putting 26 new mine hunters into the pipeline. Submarines, which previously emphasized attack over reconnaissance, became stealthy mappers and dismantlers of minefields. Once an area is clear of mines, a host of other threats appear almost literally on the horizon.
The difference in combat in the littoral as opposed to that in the high seas is that things happen a lot faster. Timelines are shorter. Whenever you have the ability to stand out off a distance and love something and something, you clearly can do it with a lot more confidence. You don't have to go in short range.
But while doctrine moved American ships closer to foreign shores, technology brought to third world nations weapons that barely a decade before had been exclusively the domain of the superpowers. The Navy's bad dream ceased to be Soviet nuclear submarines. It became instead a pickup truck equipped with a Chinese Silkworm missile launcher. Pulled up on a Mideastern beach like any tourist, that low-cost improvisation could cripple the most sophisticated American warship.
There are currently, I think, 77 nations around the world that have some kind of capability with cruise missiles. What they haven't had to date is an ability to use those cruise missiles against land targets. They've been primarily directed against ships at sea.
Even as the threats have grown, naval budgets have shrunk.
The Navy is the instrument of the American people. You know, we are doing the will of the nation that we protect and defend. And through the mechanisms of budget and congressional guidance, you know, we have been told you need to decrease in size. We in uniform simply take that direction, and we build with the monies that are apportioned the very best Navy, the best trained Navies that we can muster.
The mandated cuts obviously aren't easy, and the arguments over what goes and what doesn't can be bitter. One of the most hotly debated was the decommissioning of the last American battleships, the USS Missouri and USS Wisconsin.
They left a hole in two key things. One is that nothing right now provides the type of Valor, the type of ground that you have in 60 inch, and the type of repetitive firepower that provides that ship.
Remaining is a surface fleet of sleek cruisers and destroyers that, working in concert with aircraft carriers and submarines, provide a level of battle space dominance almost unimaginable 2 decades ago.
Today's Navy and Marine Corps uses speed. You know, no problem is so big that you can't run away from it. I say that sort of tongue-in-cheek, but and we, in most cases, do not see the enemy because of modern warfare with intelligence inputs and long-range weaponry. We reach out and touch someone from a long distance.
While the hardware of naval battle is changing rapidly, the more significant changes are in the software, the ability of American forces to exchange information. Today's Navy flotilla is awash in a stream of pure data from spy satellites, National Security Agency overflights, infantry patrols, and other Navy ships.
If you can't communicate, you can't fight. Warfare is so rapid today that where you had minutes or sometimes hours in past wars, you have seconds.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, launch.
Missile away!
Yes, sir.
The Navy brass took from the sea an aggressive step further. No longer content as gunboat diplomats, the mildly retitled doctrine forward from the sea postulates the Navy as a preemptory force capable of fighting and quickly extinguishing international conflicts before they become wars. The result is likely the most in-your-face force in American military history. A Navy that owes as much to crazy horse as it does to Farragut.
That's what Forward from the Sea is all about. Be there, able to respond just as this crisis starts, so it can be stopped with a credible force, but a small force, rather than having a delay as it festers and grows and involves other nations and other people. And then you must respond in a much heavier manner.
You're a dictator with delusions of grandeur. Every morning you look across the beach and see an American warship. It's been there, looming like a specter for 2 months. You have given speeches to your people, promising not to back down, promising to humiliate the foreign interlopers. You may be just learning the rules, but you're certain you'll enjoy the game.
When I was playing basketball in high school, and I admired a particular college team, my high school or my college team from the state was West Virginia, and Jerry West was playing for them then. And they used a thing called the zone press, and they put they always had 2 or 3 men where the ball was, and that's kind of how I think of naval forces. You put the force where the ball is.
The bureaucrats call it power projection. It is the threat applied, push coming to shove, the logical conclusion of an illogical process. The truism of our times is that the president, in times of crisis, almost automatically asks where the carriers are.
There is no more impressive weapon system on Earth than the aircraft carrier and the planes that it launches. There is no force on Earth that is comparable.
The other great punch from the air is delivered by the Tomahawk cruise missile. With a range of over 1,000 miles, the cruise missile launchers can be positioned far behind the protective wall of American firepower. There, the carriers and cruise launchers can operate with near impunity.
In the end, you still have to win the land. You still have to take away the enemy's bayonet. And but as was proven in the Persian Gulf War, that process can be different with less loss of life. And the more rapid and more surprising it is to the enemy, the less you lose.
The final assault, if there is to be one, begins silently. Subs scout paths through supposedly impregnable minefields. A handful of black-clad SEALs wade ashore to raise hell with command and control. Planes and cruise missiles swoop overhead, wiping out shore batteries and rocket launchers. Marines in armored hovercrafts fly over carefully laid barbed wire, and American attack subs guard the subsurface flank. There is nothing new about delivering fire from ship to shore. Nothing new about submarines ferrying in special operations forces, or about the use of carrier-based aircraft to deliver the ultimate message. And while there may not be as much sheer power as the Cold War Navy could boast, there is certainly the ability to direct it more precisely, to waste less, and accomplish more.
We're going to be ready on arrival to do whatever it is we need to do, and we've got the staying power to do it for quite a while. We don't need a big logistics tail to support us, at least not initially.
Imagine that you were a third world dictator with delusions of grandeur. You were looking across the pristine sands of your local beach at an American warship. You're thinking about putting up barbed wire and making a stand. You know that somewhere under the waves is a submarine, and you know that somewhere over the horizon is an aircraft carrier. Parked down the coast is an amphibious assault ship ready to burst forth a squall line, stir crazy marines. And you know that somewhere out there are eyes and radar scanners and infrared photographs documenting your every move. The whole world is waiting to see what you're going to do. The smart money is betting that you're gonna invent.